I think Joel Embiid is the MVP. And I don't think it has been fluid, actually. I think Joel Embiid took that lead early in the season and has never relinquished it. I think wire to wire so far, he's been the MVP of the NBA. By the way, just like you gave respect to Embiid, I'm not here to down Harden. I think Harden's playing the best basketball of his career, and that's saying a whole lot because the guy's not only an MVP, but perennially, he is maybe deserving of the MVP. He's right there of the regular season. He's either the MVP or the runner-up or the third place every year. I think this is the best he's ever played. He's been amazing. But Stephen A., he missed the first part of the season with the Nets. You know, Embiid's been with the Sixers the entire time, and the Sixers have the best record in the conference. And the Sixers beat the Nets when they last played, and they just beat Utah. And they did it because Joel Embiid willed them back in the game down the stretch in the fourth quarter. And he took them to overtime with a run-back three. I mean, this dude is doing everything. 40 and 19 in overtime last night, but for the season, 30, 11 and a half with a block and a half. And Stephen A., that's just on the offensive end. If you want to argue Harden because he's a floor general, and by the way, LeBron, I know it gets boring, but LeBron's right there every year. Or because of all the responsibility they have in the offense, that's fine. But let's stay to Harden for a second because LeBron also defends. Harden's an underrated defender. Like, I'm almost on the verge of saying Harden's a pretty good defender, but I don't know if I'm there yet, but he's certainly not a bad defender. Joel Embiid might be legitimately the best defensive player in basketball. He may have the greatest defensive impact in the NBA. So you got the offense, which at most is very close. Maybe it's Embiid, maybe it's Harden. I won't fight you too hard if you say Harden on offense by a very, very little bit. Even though Embiid's efficiency numbers are better than Harden's and everything. Embiid's shooting over 40% from three, all that. But on defense, it's not close. So there's offense and there's defense and there's your team's record and there's the fact that Embiid has been there the whole season. I can't, as great as Harden's been, I can't make the argument for him over Embiid and not over LeBron either. I know Harden's gotten to a new team. That's a big thing to show up in a new place and not miss a beat. Start dropping triple-doubles with 30 points and wins. I get it. But LeBron's missed one game this season for the Lakers and has been doing everything Harden's been doing on offense and has been playing better defense. I can't give it to Harden this year as MVP so far.
Well, listen, I hear where you're coming from with Harden. Again, if Kevin Durant was in there, I'd feel differently. But because Kevin Durant is out and him continuing to play the way that he's played and amping it up and listening to the players talk about him and the leadership that he's providing and the point guard duties that he's obviously partaking, I got to give credit where credit is due. In terms of Joel Embiid as a defensive wizard, he's a big-time defensive player, deserves a lot of credit. But let's not call him the best defensive player on the Sixers. We know better than that. It's Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is the best defensive player. Ben Simmons is going to win Defensive Player of the Year if anybody's paying attention. He's been absolutely great. And so I don't think there's any denying that. And then you look at the, overtime, for example, when they went to Tobias Harris 4 straight times. Yeah, Joel Embiid can do some things, but the guys around him are doing so much. People don't realize, even though he's averaging 30 and 11, shoot 42%, nearly 42% for three-point range, which is not something we're accustomed to seeing from Joel Embiid. The reality is that the coaching combined with the personnel that he's had around him this particular season with what Doc Rivers, Elton Brand, and Daryl Morey have done deserves a lot of kudos for what's transpiring there. In the case of James Harden literally has found himself having to hold down the fort and pick up the slack until Kyrie can go at it for you night in and night out, as well as Kevin Durant ultimately coming back. So all of those things are things that need to be taken into consideration as we look at what Brooklyn is doing. They've won 10 of their last 11 games. They're only a half game out of the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I look at it from that perspective based on those circumstances, and I think the argument is sound on behalf of James Harden.
Well, I'll say this for Harden. Embiid's the MVP to me. Then at this moment, LeBron, but Harden's in the conversation. And I've never, I don't think, even heard of something like this, where a guy, not mid-season exactly, but once a nice little part of the season has already been played, switches teams, but not only switches teams, plays his way out of town. Like, made it very clear with his play and his attitude he did not want to be there. And Harden was toxic at that moment. You heard all around the league, guys didn't even want him to come to that town. They didn't want to play with him. For him to show up in Brooklyn like, as I've been saying, looking like he rolled out of bed, fat and out of shape, like a hot mess, and day one start dropping triple-doubles with 30 points in wins has been remarkable, and he is in the conversation. I will give you that. Harden's in the conversation, but not at the very top of the list. That's for the big man who did it again last night, who's dominating a league right now where I thought it was impossible for an old-school, back-to-the-basket type center to dominate the league. But he's doing it. He's the best player in basketball so far, from beginning to end, the most valuable in the year 2021.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.